Rothstein, Deputy County Administrative Officer. Welcome. Let's start again.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Matthew Rothstein, Deputy County Administrative Officer. Welcome to the Northshore Community Visioning Forum. We're grateful that you chose to spend your evening with us. I know you had many alternatives. Thank you, community members and county staff and representatives alike, for choosing to be here, for sharing your hearts and your best ideas. How and where we invest our focus and our time informs the development of our priorities. Our priorities, in turn, drive many kinds of decisions. In most financial decisions, the choice to spend money in one area precludes spending in others. A dollar spent is an unavailable dollar. In an environment where money is scarce, financial decisions are particularly critical and have broad implications. The Board of Supervisors, County Administrative Office, department heads, and county fiscal staff are responsible for the quality of many financial decisions in our county government. But we cannot make these decisions sitting alone in an office. We serve in a representative government, a government of, by, and for the people. That means we cannot do our job well unless we hear from you. You inform our priorities, both directly and through your elected representatives. To make grounded financial decisions, therefore, we must understand what matters to you. We also can't afford to do everything that we would like, and not every community need aligns with the county government function or service. Still, we want to do the right work, the most important and timely work. And that's why we, all of us, are here tonight. And now it's my privilege to introduce you to District 3 Supervisor Jim Steele.
Hi, everybody. Hey, listen, one thing we live in is a wonderful country, and it does not go any time at all of any notice without saying something about that. So what do? We stand up and we give a salute to the flag in order to get something started. We do it at the board. Would you join me in a salute to the flag? And anyone who has to sit to do that is fine, but really appreciate it. And salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And I don't know about you, but that always makes me feel better. We're a unique county. We are the only county that is entirely situated within the intercoastal range of the state. We're kind of isolated a little bit, and we're also the masters of our own destiny. And we have key players that help us move forward, and the key players are you, and you understanding what's going on. Because when you understand what's going on, you can give feedback. And that feedback needs to come in many forms. And so that's why we have 3 town councils in District 3. Those town councils were established so that you could come to those and we could have that open conversation and much more intimate than we ordinarily have. This is a rarity. We all get together around the whole county in these meetings. There's going to be several. And I think we're the 3rd. You are. Yeah, we're the 3rd. And so you're giving feedback. You're looking to see what it is, the direction we're trying to go, what it is that we can do, and what it is you want to have us do. So you'll have a chance to do a survey, you'll have a chance to give the feedback, and you'll have a chance to make a difference. We're not all going to get what we want, but we want to hear what you want to have us give. And that's going to be very important because we're in a trying time. We've had some fires. We've had plenty of them. We've had 5 emergencies, 1 of a flood. And those fires took the heart out of our economic stability here, even more so than we did have prior to this time. We recognize it as supervisors, and we're thinking we got to make some tough choices. We know we're going to come back. We know we're going to rebound. We're working on the lake. We've got money that is going to inform some of the things we do. Finally, we're moving forward. And we're going to move forward with the fire rebuild, and we're going to move forward with a robust economy. But we still got to get through that hump and those trying times. And so listen today what the staff has to say, and then make sure you give your remarks back to us. I want to acknowledge one of the supervisors in the audience that I see, Supervisor Tina Scott. And we have Superintendent of Schools, Brock Falkenberg. Sorry about that. And Giovanni Anus is Upper Lake Superintendent back over here. We also have the noted author and the chair of the Upper Lake Town Hall, Mr. Gene Polino. Our closest touch to royalty that we have. Thank you, Gene. All right, now I'd like to introduce our County Administrative Officer, Carol Hutchinson. She's the one that basically keeps us all on the straight and narrow and close track on where we're going on the board. And then we actually try to bring her the direction that we're going, but sometimes we don't have enough information. She doesn't have enough information. And so that's why she's organized this tonight to help us get there. And so let's give a warm welcome to Carol Hutchinson.
He said I try to keep the board on track. How do you suppose that goes with 5 of them? Not so well. They all have minds of their own. So I want to join Supervisor Steele in thanking everyone for coming out tonight. As he said, this is our third of 5 forums. It's an exciting time, and we know you had other things you could have chosen to do tonight, so thanks again for giving us this time. As Supervisor Steele touched on, over the last 3 years, Lake County has shown some truly powerful examples of unity as we have faced a series of disasters, no less than 5 large disasters in these 36 months. The scope of those disasters exceed what other communities have ever experienced. And so the slogan, Lake County Strong, is really more than a slogan here. It's a way of life for those of us who live here. Now we need to take that can-do spirit to address Lake County's serious and worsening financial condition. The recent fires have truly devastated many of our local communities, and the fires have also created dire financial consequences for the County of Lake. The loss of 1,800 homes, as well as local businesses, has significantly reduced property tax and sales tax revenues. By the end of this fiscal year, that loss will translate into over $5 million to the county general fund. And for each additional year that we're in the recovery mode, you can assume about another $1.5 million lost. So the impact is long-term. I mentioned the general fund a minute ago. The general fund is the fund from which the majority of our essential core services are funded. And in just a few minutes, I'll explain further what we mean by core services, which is what we're going to focus on for this discussion. So during those times of lost revenues, as always, the cost of business seems to keep going up, while those financial resources are significantly diminished. We are now reaching a point where something has to give, and that's what we're hoping to explore with you tonight. For many years, Lake County government has managed its public resources in a fiscally sound manner. We've kept our taxes low, we've maintained strict oversight on county spending, and we've balanced our budgets honestly without financial gimmicks that you hear about being used in other jurisdictions. You also hear from time to time about counties declaring bankruptcy. That has not been here. You hear about counties that have massive debt. Lake County has that much debt. You hear of retirees from other counties earning pensions that are equal to or more than what they earned before they retired. Definitely not us. The purpose of tonight's Community Visioning Forum is first to educate you about county government's serious financial picture. Second, to engage you in helping us prioritize your community service needs. And third, to seek your input in developing additional revenue sources so we can provide the kind of quality services you deserve. Members of the Board of Supervisors have come up with some really powerful goals, not only for the current fiscal year, but for the future of Lake County in general. You'll see them over here to my right. The hope will be to also refine and develop these goals as a roadmap for the future of Lake County, using the input we receive through the course of these meetings. So tonight, we're talking about budget challenges now, as well as the long-range solutions to get through those challenges. We have a number of county department heads here tonight that are going to speak to you about some of the budget realities they are dealing with as funding diminishes. And then also some of our county staff are going to participate. They are available to answer questions. Stephen Carter and Jeff Ryan are on the far end. They're from the administrative office. Michelle Scully is to my right. Michelle is going to moderate the time when we start hearing from you. And then the department heads that are here tonight is Christopher Beach, our librarian, Bill Davidson, Animal Control Director, Brian Martin, our sheriff, Scott DeLeon, Public Works Director, and Lars Ewing, our Public Services Director. So to get started, I want to go through a brief PowerPoint to illustrate how your money is spent. The focus of the first two slides is to show that the great majority of local tax dollars, meaning property tax, sales tax, and gas tax, is dedicated to the essential public services in our community. We're calling those essential core services tonight. There are other county services that are self-funded from fees and special funding received from the state and federal government. For the most part, that's not the focus of our discussion tonight. Those departments include water resources, social services, health services, air quality, building and safety. Those are examples of departments that have their funding sources established for them through state and federal allocations or through fees. Again, today we're focused primarily on the essential core services that rely on property tax, sales tax, and gas tax. So listed on this first slide is the list of these core services departments we're talking about today. Let's see if this thing will work. Okay, it kind of does. Let's see. Okay. I'll point. So to the far right is the list of the law enforcement departments that comprise the core services department. We have the district attorney, the victim witness division, which is a part of the district attorney's office, the public defender program that is operated under contract. The sheriff has numerous departments under him, so the sheriff coroner, the central dispatch, marine patrol, jail facilities. We also have probation and juvenile home. Actually, our juvenile wards are now housed out of county. Some years ago, the local juvenile hall was closed due to low census there, and so our children are cared for elsewhere. And then last on that list is jail medical services. There's a considerable amount of funding put into the medical care of inmates who are incarcerated in the Lake County Jail. On the left are the list of other other core services that are not affiliated with law enforcement. Those include the Agricultural Commissioner, the University of California Cooperative Extension, senior citizens programs, veterans services, animal control, parks and rec, museums, library, and roads. This doesn't include a number of other county departments which are also funded by those same local tax dollars: property tax, sales tax, gas tax. For the most part, these other non-core departments provide internal support to the rest. Examples of those are auditor controller, treasurer, human resources, county council, information technology. As you'll see on this next slide, those non-core services receive significantly less of the funding that we're talking about. And what this slide illustrates first and foremost is law enforcement. Law enforcement is given the highest priority. That's been the board's priority for as many years as anyone can remember. And the board is putting forth 51% of property tax and sales tax to law enforcement. 17% of these funds goes to roads, 9% goes to the other core services. So that's a total of 77% property tax, sales tax, gas tax that goes to these core services. And then the remaining 23% are those departments that I mentioned that provide a support to the rest. The next slide consists of a graph which illustrates how over the past 6 years, funding for the core services has increased. It's climbing since 11-12 through 16-17, it's up about 27%. Whereas the funding for the non-core services, the departments that provide the internal support, has diminished to the tune of almost 8% over those years. Despite the increase in spending for the core services departments, I'm confident that my fellow department heads could make a compelling argument for still lacking the staffing and resources that they need. There are just so many unmet needs in our community, and they'll elaborate on that a little bit more. As for the non-core services, the red line, the financial circumstances there are even worse. As illustrated on slide 4, our efforts to fund core services has become even more challenged in recent years due to the fact that there has been no real growth in property tax revenues since the Great Recession. That was back in 2008. And as you can see, the line is going downward. For all property tax collected, the county actually receives only about 25 cents on the dollar. And this revenue source is declining on an inflation-adjusted basis. So in addition to our sluggish recovery from the Great Recession, Lake County's property tax base has also been decimated by the series of unprecedented fires. Recovery is really a long-term process, and rebuilding takes time. Using the Valley Fire as an example, which, as we all know, was the largest of the fires by far, we're now a little over 2.5 years out, and a little more than 10% of the homes lost have been rebuilt, meaning final. There are a number of others in progress, but the truth is that some of the lost properties may never be rebuilt. For some survivors, the devastation was understandably just too much, and they've been compelled to move on. Those homes that are never rebuilt result in a permanent loss of property tax revenue. To date, the accumulated property tax loss associated with the fires sits at about $3.5 million, and again, it grows by another $1 million each subsequent fiscal year. Considering that property tax represents about 50% of our general fund revenue, the failure of it to recover has already resulted in staffing reductions and loss of some important services. The details are reflected on the easels in the back of the room, and in just a few minutes, my peers will elaborate. If you look at the chart to the far right, it shows you how the number of allocated positions, aka staff, has also declined in those departments. Since 2008, 2009, we're down about 11% of staffing in those departments. And if you go back to the graph, what it's illustrating to you is that since 08-09, we are now down about $5 million in property tax revenues. The red line kind of embedded there shows just the continuing downward spiral. So not only has the reduced property tax challenged our ability to sustain core services, but the cost of disaster response and recovery has also significantly impacted our financial challenges. As you can see from this next slide, so far the cost of disaster response and recovery is about $26 million. So we have it broken down by fire, Rocky and Jerusalem fires. Remember when those occurred, we thought that was the worst thing we'd ever seen. Boy. Cost us about $350,000. The Valley Fire, over $16 million. Clayton Fire, just under $400,000. The winter storms, of last year, this time last year, about 9 million. The sulfur fire costs still being tabulated. Some of these costs are being reimbursed through FEMA and through Cal-OES, but the county will never be made whole. At this point, our best estimate, barring any further disasters, is that Lake County will bear as much as $5 million in unreimbursed disaster costs. Which brings us to this last slide. It's really intended to help put our financial challenge into perspective. This slide illustrates how the cost of core services is exceeding new revenues intended to support them each year. So if you look back at the far side of the chart, farthest from me, that is fiscal year 10-11. During that year, revenue actually exceeded expenses. It predates me in the administrative office, but I'm told that during that year there was tax sale. Jeff, I'm looking at you. Were there other factors I should mention that contributed that year? So revenues were good. We were in a better place then. But in the years after that, things flipped, and we began this trend of expenses exceeding revenue. The funds that we had in excess in 10-11 were reserved and applied to those deficits through the course of the subsequent years. And if you kind of just do some simple math, you'll see that we pretty much got ourselves up to 15-16, filling the gap with those funds. But by the time we hit this last year illustrated, which is 16-17, the gap became unsustainable. So, and looking at 16-17, we have a little over $3 million gap. The bottom line is this: there's only so much money to go around. It's less than it used to be for a variety of factors, and on our current trajectory, it's going to become less and less. What we're seeking tonight from you is a better understanding of what services are a priority to you. Where do you want to see our limited funds allocated? We also want to hear your ideas on ways to save money or find new money. And of course, we're also on hand to do our best to answer any questions you may have along these lines. But before we open it up to hear from you, we'd like to let our department heads talk to you a little bit about what they're dealing with and give you a brief overview on what's on each of the easels.
Thank you. So I'm Christopher Beach, the county librarian. And like the other county departments here tonight, the library has had to do more with less. Right now we have 6 full-time staff, 2 part-time staff, and a handful of extra help to run 4 library branches and an adult literacy program. We are lucky to have very many wonderful volunteers, and I write several grants per year to keep the doors open. But grants and volunteers can only go so far. The library has a very lean budget, and you can really see that when you look on the shelves of our libraries. We just aren't able to purchase or glean from donations what we need to serve Lake County. There just aren't enough new materials to meet demands. Patrons have to wait on long lists for the newest bestseller. They can wait anywhere from 5 to 7 months. People can wait for the new nonfiction materials like a GED test book for 2 weeks to 2 months. Last year we had over 25,000 sessions on our public computers, and that's not even counting the Wi-Fi users. With such few staff, unfortunately, we just don't have time to help people for longer than a few minutes when they need help filling out job applications online or have other questions that they need assistance with. If this trend continues, we will have a hard time providing the service that Lake County deserves. Any further reduction in staff will have to be balanced with a reduction in hours open to the public. The library collection will continue to become shallow and unbalanced, and ultimately, we won't be able to fulfill our mission to improve literacy and support the informed populace.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody. My name is Bill Davidson. I'm the director for the Animal Control Department. And if you've had a chance to kind of look at the charts and so forth, especially that one in the back that has that 9-year span on it, you'll see that just about every department is doing more today with fewer staff than we had 9 years ago. In the Animal Control Department, I'd like to say I'm fortunate enough to have staffing and the people that we've been able to actually double our services over the last 9 years. But at this point in time, we're maxed out. We can't do anything else. And And in all honesty, there are days when we find ourselves having a hard time trying to keep up with the workload that we have. We are mandated to run the animal shelter and to take in strays, but it's not the same thing with field services. So, I mean, if we're talking about the potential for budget cuts and things coming down the line, field services are what makes up as far as the animal control portion goes. Certainly, we're going to respond to any kind of an animal emergency immediately, but the routine stuff that we do on a day-to-day basis, picking up stray animals, responding to loose dog complaints, barking complaints, those kind of things are going to have to be put on the back burner depending on the availability of staff. So it's going to have to wait and see how things work out. That's why we're all talking today.
Hi, I'm Brian Martin. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I know there's a lot going on in everybody's lives. We appreciate your time coming out here. As far as the Sheriff's Department, as Bill Davidson said, we're doing more with less people than we were several years ago. With those numbers up there don't reflect our additional vacant positions that we have at the Sheriff's Office. There's 66 Deputy Sheriff positions. I'll just talk about Deputy Sheriff because that's mostly what everybody deals with. But we also employ correctional officers, public safety dispatchers, and other civilian employees. But we're allocated 66 Deputy Sheriff positions. Of those, we have 9 positions that aren't funded. We have recruitment and retention issues, as does every other department within the county. And so we've gone without funding for those for several years as a way of saving money and letting it, and allowing it to be used better elsewhere. Additionally, we have 9 vacant positions. These are positions that are available, that we could fill, that we have funding for, but we have a lot of difficulty attracting qualified applicants. What I won't do is I won't lower our standards and hire people that shouldn't work in our communities just so we can fill those positions and put bodies on the streets. And that leaves a very small and limited pool of qualified candidates. We compete with surrounding agencies. We compete with Napa County. As of today, there's 9 deputies that work in Napa County that used to be Lake County deputies. A lot of them still live in Lake County, and some of them have moved. But just to drive over the hill for 15, 20 minutes longer from Hidden Valley than it takes to get to Lakeport, they make a significant amount more money. And the reality is we compete with those agencies, Sonoma County, some of the bigger Bay Area cities, for a small group of qualified candidates. It's not unique to the Sheriff's Office. I think every department in the county struggles with those same things. We would all love to, I know the fire departments also struggle with that. We become a training ground for people to come get their, cut their teeth, and then show that they're capable of doing the job, and then they get picked up by other agencies. So very difficult. What that means, we're in the business of delivering services. We deliver services by delivering to people to deliver those services. We don't create a product. We don't create widgets that you come and buy. We create a service where if something's happening, you call and you expect a deputy sheriff to show up and handle the situation. With the staffing levels that we have now over the last 365 days, our average response times for calls within Lake County is 30 minutes. That knocked the paper off the wall. There's such an audible gasp in the room that knocked the paper off. 30-minute response time for me is not acceptable, but that's a reality. And none of us are up here to whine. We're just here to tell you what we're dealing with and what the realities are. I would love to have that response time. Everybody knows you live in the city, you live out in the country. You don't have all those services available right away. But 30 minutes is quite a bit of time to wait for law enforcement to arrive. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's quicker. I have deputy sheriffs working in other positions because our vacancy rate throughout the department is rampant. I have a deputy sheriff that's actually working in dispatch while we're trying to recruit and train new dispatch employees. So these are just the things that we're trying to deal with. All of us up here have racked our heads. We've racked our brains trying to do, as Bill said, more with less, as everybody said. We've been doing more with less for years and years and years. And we're finally reaching a point where we simply can't do more with less. And we're going to have to start looking at doing less with less. So what we're here for, the purpose of these meetings, is to get your input. Your participation in these meetings is very important. We truly want you to come up and give us suggestions, ask us questions. Let's brainstorm. We're here to serve you. We don't do this on our own. We do this. We need to know where your priorities are so we can best set our priorities. Thank you again for coming out.
Good evening, I'm Scott DeLeon, I'm the Public Works Director, and thank you everybody for being here. The road department, and we've got a chart in the back, and I'd encourage you to take a look at that. The road department over the last several years has been in decline in revenue. If you look at our budget, fiscal year 17-18 was $18 million budget, and you wonder, well, where's all that money going? the majority, the great majority of the funds in that in our budget are dedicated funds to specific projects. We have actually a fairly small discretionary budget. It varies between $2.5 and $3 million a year. And when I say discretionary, that's money that we can use on our local roads. That money's been in decline over the past several years. That discretionary money is gasoline tax. With the advent of electric vehicles, more fuel-efficient cars, we've been seeing gasoline tax revenues decline. And in fact, we're down over $1 million since fiscal year 13-14 in gas tax revenues. However, this last year, with the passage of SB 1 and the governor's signature on that bill, we are finally seeing, after many, many years, an increase in revenue and funds that are dedicated strictly to road maintenance and rehabilitation. And we're very excited about this potential, well, not potential, we're excited about these new funds. I will tell you that there is a recall effort for SB 1. Perhaps if that gains traction in November, we're going to be seeing an item on the ballot to repeal that. I'm hopeful that doesn't happen because that will be devastating to not only Lake County but to all agencies statewide. There's some numbers in the back about what we're seeing this year from the new revenues from SB 1 and what the projected numbers are over the next several years. And what we're excited about with that additional funding is to be able to do projects that are going to change the tide of the decline of our county roads. Right now, our pavement condition index is 40. It is near the bottom of all the counties in the state. Only Mendocino County right now is worse than us. So we're approaching the worst roads in the state, and this additional funding will allow us to change that. So we're very excited about that, and be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Lars Ewing, the Public Services Director. The divisions under Public Services that I'm going to be talking about tonight that we're really focusing on are parks and museums. There's a couple of others that fall under the non-core or the self-funded. And I'd really like to just start this by saying that there truly is an impact to those non-core services. Buildings and grounds is the division that is supported by those property taxes and sales taxes. I bring that up because there's some of those staff members here, and that there is a huge hit to the loss of revenue for those departments, or those divisions. But for parks and museums, to focus on those, really why we're here is what can you tell us that we might, so we can do better, either with the money that we have or how we can bring in new money. But in order to do that, what is it about parks? Why do you even need parks? And I'll hit on museums in a moment. But I think it's easy with the four gentlemen here that talking literacy, reading, and animals, and roads and law enforcement. I think it's obvious those are essential core services. Parks, I think it's an often overlooked essential service, and I'm not here to compete with them. We work together. All the services need to be provided to you, but just understanding that parks do provide economic benefits, health benefits, social benefits. I mean, if you did not have your parks, it oftentimes in communities it becomes the central area. It's a recognizable feature in that community, whether it's a city or an unincorporated county. For the unincorporated county in Lake County, we have 25 parks. That's huge for a county of our size. And with those parks being built over the history with a variety of different funds, it takes revenue to maintain those. So what do we run the risk of? Well, what we run the risk of is the beautiful parks that we have now. If we keep the status quo financially, we may keep the status quo as it is now, which is great. But as it continues, imagine the parks of 50 years ago. If they stayed the same back then, 50 years from now, if we had the same parks, you can see that it would just be effectively dilapidation. We may be able to mow the grass and paint the fences, but we'll have effectively that same playground up, which teeter-totters aren't allowed anymore, I'll put it that way. So 50 years from now, who knows what's going to be out there. So there's a need for upgrading those parks for our children, for everyone getting out there and using and maximizing the benefits that it provides. On the museum side, I think it's very similar. We talked about, I mentioned economic, health, and social benefits. Just a little different there. Economic, social, and I'd say cultural and historical education benefits of the museum. We have in the county, there are 3 museums. There's 1 curator for all 3 museums. Now we have a great extra help staff, a magnificent volunteer force on nonprofits. But when we talk about our staff, that's a challenge for 1 professional curator to manage 3. 3 is new. We used to have 2 curators, 1 part-time, 1 full-time, and 2 museums. Now we have 3 with 1. So obviously we are doing exactly what the other departments are doing, and that is doing more with less. So I look forward to hearing from you, constructive feedback, ideas, and answer any questions. Thank you.
We didn't test Matthew. Matthew's the microphone professional. This is the 3rd forum that we've had, and so it's been an evolving process. And this is the part of the evening where we'd like you, if you would like to get up and share with us, to do that. So I'm going to try and do some math. We have essentially an hour to have questions and your thoughts. So to make that fair, to make sure everyone has time to speak, can I just get a show of hands? Maybe if you're thinking you want to get up. Okay. I'm just going to go big and say, let's say we have 2.37 minutes. I did all that math in my head, each. You guys are like, no way. Around 2.5 minutes each. And if you are able to come up to the microphone, how about if we line up over here, and then if you are not, just stay in your seat and raise your hand and I'll bring this mic to you. And so it would be wonderful if you feel like sharing your name. You can say, hi, I'm Tanya, and just let us know, do you have a question? Hey girl, I haven't seen you in so long. If you have a question or an idea or a suggestion, so just be like, hey, I'm Tanya, I have a question. Hey, I'm Joe, I have an idea. Okay, and we're going to be recording the ideas and suggestions. Right, very fun. And your panel will respond to questions. So if you would like to do either, if you want to come and line up along here, that'd be awesome.
Michelle,
Let's get going.
let me make an announcement here. One thing I can see happening, I know my people, one thing that's going to happen here is that you're going to hear folks start to give input and whatnot. You're going to look at the clock and somebody's going to get up and leave. I want you to know that we have a survey that gives your feedback. Please don't leave without giving the results of the survey back to us, or we'll find a way to get that information from you to me. Because I really need this. I need to hear what you have to say, and I need the results of you saying which survey or core services you really prioritize as the highest. So don't leave without that knowing it.
Thank you, Jim. That's great. And towards that end, we know not everyone can come out at night. We know you might have friends and family who weren't able to. So please take a survey to share. And if you're like, there's no way I'm getting up and talking in public, take down this email address, which is vision@lakecountyca.gov. Or if you're up at 12:30 tonight and you want to shoot something off because the thought came to you, please feel free to do that. All right. Kick us off good.
Well, you just answered my first question. So my name is Joël and I volunteer at the Senior Center and at the library. And I wanted first to say it's really difficult for the elderly of the community to come in the evening. So maybe next time you could make one meeting in the afternoon for those people who cannot drive in the dark. So that was my comment. But I took note of the website and I will give survey around to those people. And then I have a little question last. I love.
Could I respond to the first thing you said though about a day meeting, just to tell you of an opportunity that we do have one opportunity, and that is, we were going to tell you this at the end, but on February 6th at 9:30 a.m., the Board of Supervisors will hear the outcomes from all of the meetings, and it would be an opportunity to take another shot at it, or anybody that hasn't been able to participate would be encouraged to come, because we'll be talking about all the input received that day in the Board of Supervisors chambers.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And then I wanted to say how much I appreciate and I utilize the park also. And last year I was really disappointed going at the big park close to the Conoctai Casino because there were a lot of dead fish on the beach and children playing with them. And I think that could be a health issue.
Thank you, Joelle, right? Thank you so much.
Good evening. I appreciate the county for conducting this forum so that the voices of North Shore residents can be heard. My name is Debbie Zachariason and I live in Lucerne. I'm also the president of the Friends of the Library and an avid supporter of our public libraries. The Friends of the Library is a nonprofit all-volunteer group that raises much-needed funds to purchase items for our libraries so that the budget can't support, like books. The budget is so tight that our library director, Christopher, has to squeeze $1 out of a quarter and then stretch that dollar until it begs for mercy. But at least he does have a budget, and that's very much appreciated. Walter Cronkite once said, "Whatever the cost of our libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation." Ignorance is costly. Law enforcement can attest to that fact. Libraries are repositories of knowledge. Our public libraries give everyone access to that knowledge without charge or censorship. Can't read? The library can teach you. Need internet access but can't afford a connection? Come to the library and use it for free. They will even teach you how to use the computer. Christopher gives wonderful classes with the computer. Got a question? Google will give you 1,000 responses. A librarian will help you find the correct response. Visit the library during story time and see the faces of our future light up with learning. The library is the cornerstone of a civilized and informed society. Knowledgeable people in turn create more revenue for our county. More libraries are needed in this county. Our libraries are very lucky to have a wonderful, dedicated, and hardworking staff. The libraries also have very dedicated volunteers. Volunteers are what make Lake County strong. A lot of the good done in this county is done by volunteers. If the county had an easy, flexible volunteer program, I bet a lot of the mundane office tasks could be done by volunteers. A coordinator would be necessary, of course, and flexibility for work would be the key. At the bottom of your survey, you have questions about a sales tax increase. I'm not generally in favor of taxes increase, but maybe this is the time to look at that. I'd like to know what amount you are considering, what would be the revenue generated if approved, and how this revenue would be used. Would it benefit the core service department's shortfalls first? Thank you, and please fund our libraries.
Thank you, Debbie. So, if you're a volunteer, raise your hand for anything.
Wow.
That's Lake County for you.
So do we get an answer to that question?
Oh, an answer to the question she asked about sales tax? We are not contemplating any kind of fixed amount and therefore can't give you a revenue estimate. I will tell you though, as we all know, because we shop in Clear Lake and Lakeport, many of us, both cities have a cent-and-a-half tax measure that was passed. So when you shop at major retailers, Walmart or Kmart, you're already paying it. Many of us go over the hill. I know I do a lot for my spending, and I was shocked the last time I was shopping in Santa Rosa. I looked at my receipt, and not only did I pay an increased sales tax rate, I paid a bunch of other things that I wasn't even sure what it was. There were a whole bunch of little assessments in addition to that. So again, no absolute figure in mind, although I think we would be looking at something that is less than what you're paying in the two cities now.
Name and question or idea suggestion? You can have both.
I'm Klaus, I live in Lucerne. I was wondering, when you said that only 25% of our property taxes stays here in the county, I wonder where the rest of that goes, and could we not possibly lobby to get a little more, considering our natural disasters and the poverty of our county? As a suggestion, Jim Steele, for example, he got the Lucerne water rates lowered by going into the State Department, which I very much appreciate. So that's my...
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that. Actually, 25 cents on the dollar of our property tax dollars is what goes to county. The rest of property tax dollars go to numerous other in-county sources. Schools, special districts, fire departments. The money is in the county. It's just that the county of Lake's portion of property tax dollars is just 25 cents on the dollar.
So for the government, it's only 25% and the rest of it gets allocated throughout the county.
Absolutely, that is correct. Nothing leaves. It goes to local services, but there are just a lot of
All right.
hands.
Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus. Sir, your name, idea, suggestion, or both?
Good evening, my name is Buster Jones and I'm concerned about roads. I'd like to address this to our road department. You're talking about this new tax increase on gasoline and on diesel, which is pretty high. And our roads in this county are terrible, we all know that. And it's not the fault of the road department, it is financing. But just how much of this tax is going to the county of Lake? How much is going to the bullet train and other projects other than roads? I just really have a hard time with that one. Thank you.
Buster, didn't you hear that bullet train stopping here next? that bullet train's gonna go through Lake County? Right.
I'm ready to get on right now, go to LA.
So, sure. I'll tell you what has been told to me. Now, whether this is true and whether you want to believe this or not, I can't attest to the validity of this statement. But it's my understanding, and based on everything that I have read about SB1, the funds are dedicated to road maintenance and road rehabilitation. There are a number of other objectives and pots of money to facilitate transit, decrease congestion. There's $200 million set aside for any self-help county or city that has a dedicated sales tax measure to transportation. They're the only ones that can compete for the $200 million pot. So there are a number of pots. I'm not saying that it all goes directly to road maintenance, but the vast majority of it goes to road maintenance and rehabilitation. The projects that we select have to be sent to the State Transportation Commission, and they approve those projects. And they are specifically looking for the project that you want to do, how do you intend to do it, what are the benefits, what's the lifespan of that project, and they are looking for road rehabilitation and road maintenance projects. For Lake County, and the numbers are in the back, for this fiscal year, 17-18, and keep in mind now the tax took effect on November 1st, and I also drive a diesel vehicle, and so I'm very familiar with the increase in the cost of diesel fuel. And for fiscal year 17-18, we are estimating that we're going to receive approximately $800,000 of additional gas tax money from that bill. There's some other money wrapped into that where they're repaying some money that the state borrowed from the transportation coffers many years ago. So our total amount is about $900,000 that we're going to get back. But this year we're looking at $800,000 in SB1 funds. That's going to jump to $2.3 million next year as they phase in additional parts of the bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Buster. Your name, an idea or suggestion, or both?
I am not a public speaker. My name is Lorna Fitch. I live in Nice. I moved into Nice Memorial Day. It'll be 55 years ago. And one of the things I really love about that county is the lake. The lake used to be clear. It was weed-free. There'd be algae, but it was still clear. It didn't hurt you. There wasn't bacteria. Things weren't dying off. Right now, our lake has become a bass pond. It is a pond. You can't go out there on jet skis anymore. I used to be a ski racer. You can't ski race out on that. It clogs up your jet. Our tourism has went down because of what we've allowed happen to our lake, which is heartbreaking. I learned to swim Red Cross swimming lessons in our lake. I was a lifeguard at Library Park for 4 years. I've taught swimming lessons. I taught CPR, Red Cross certified, and all of it. Our tourism has went down. Our tax dollars and sales tax dollars have went down. Look at our resorts. They've all went down. They've become units for people to live in because of what has happened to this lake. I get concerned about the lake. A couple years ago, I saw a spray truck in the Holiday Harbor. What are you doing here? Pulled in on one of their cars. Are you sure you should be here? I looked into them online. I'm calling. They were here to try to abate the weeds. Maybe a little bit successful, I don't know. The other day, I'm driving home, I saw these people along Lakeshore, or Highway 20, with these bags. I'm thinking they're getting all the clams out, or whatever they are. They have these big black bags, and they're lined up down Highway 20. They were getting all the dead ducks that have a bacteria from our weeds. We have lost a ton of tax revenue from not taking care of our lake, and the lack of the county wanting development. We had an awesome project that was going to go in on Holiday Harbor that the county shot down. The county wanted that property, which they got. When it got destroyed 2 years ago during our storm, they don't want it anymore. They don't want to go back and fix it and make it a harbor. They've done nothing with it but let it deteriorate. Our property values have went down from lack of development, lack of taking care of our resources that we had here that made us money. What are we going to do about it? I had my 40th year class reunion this summer, and 90% of the people I went to school with said, "Why do you still live here? Look what's happened. Look at these houses. Everything's shacks." You know, it's embarrassing, and this is what we've allowed to happen. What are we going to do to change it?
So the questions directly to this panel would be.
What are we going to do to increase revenue to help all of these departments? What can we do?
And what's your plan with the lake?
I'd like to jump in. I need to fix the lake.
She's super strong.
Couple of things. Really potent, wonderful comments. Thank you. I get it. Thank you so much. So you all know there's a champion of the lake sitting here, and Supervisor Steele really believes in Clear Lake and taking steps necessary to improve the conditions of Clear Lake. And as a result of his passion, our Assembly member, Cecilia Aguiar Curry, sponsored legislation that was signed into law by the governor. It's called AB 707. And we hope it's going to be a beginning of new directions and improvements for the lake. Much work to be done in that area. In terms of economic development, you couldn't be more right. There's nobody at this table that would disagree with you that a lot needs to be done with economic development. And from our view, this needs to, I mean, we have 5 forums scheduled right now, but to tell you the truth, we need to dig in and continue to have this kind of process and look at all of our needs, including economic development. We can't solve the equation without a variety of solutions. And attracting business and tourism here is absolutely one of them. So thank you so much for bringing it up.
To Lorna, you said you weren't a public speaker. Well, you are now. All right, your name, idea, suggestion, question.
I'm Carol. I live in beautiful Lucerne, Switzerland, North America. I'm me tooing because I know that we have a Lake County visitors program. We used to have a building and people, and it was very nice. And we don't have that anymore. We have some kiosks. And what I really noticed on the kiosks, at least the one over in Upper Lake, is that everything's talking about wineries and vineyards and touring that. I read every side on that, 4 or 6, odd shape, but everything seemed to be talking about wineries. Nothing was talking about the lake. It didn't talk about using the lake. I mean, do we think the lake is so awful? It is. Yeah. I swim in it. I do. But I think we need more information, more publicity, more work, development, of course, to bring more tourists. I grew up in Florida, and believe me, they spend a lot of money on tourists. It's number one. And my personal problem is trying to get permits to rebuild my retaining wall. It
was Carol, right?
I just want to add a little more enthusiasm. Recently, the Board of Supervisors approved staff's recommendation to hire a consultant to explore the development of a tourism improvement district here. Michelle, you want to touch on that just a little? Well, let us tell you what a tourism improvement district would do if we are successful creating one.
It's kind of my baby. What a tourism improvement district does, you're talking about Florida, many other states, cities, San Diego has a huge one, is essentially creates a new entity, which is a board comprised of tourism stakeholders. Go figure, isn't that a good idea? So the people in the lodging business, because it's an assessment that they need to decide if they want to put on their rooms. But what that does is it creates a board where the county would sit at just as one seat, the cities would sit at, tourism stakeholders who have lodging facilities would sit at, and they would all talk together about what they're experiencing, how they want that money to be spent to market the county. And it's a great, really progressive way to move forward with the whole marketing Lake County in a really effective and more up-to-date way. So we're in exploration of that now. We've had in general informational meetings, the cities are in support of it, the chambers are in support of it, the word's going through the lodging community. So our hope is in doing that we kind of come out of this refreshed with a new vision to look at what we have. And towards your end Carol, about wineries, is to look at ecotourism, to look at cycling. Cycling's really big here. And rowing, were you rowing? I want to have lunch with you soon. All right, that was rowing.
So we'll stop talking and let them talk.
Stand-up paddleboarding, all kinds of things like that. So that's in the works, and if it's embraced by the lodging community, then it should be in effect for the next fiscal year. So we're excited about that. Okay, your name? question or idea, suggestion, and you can now vote.
Annelle, I'm a member of the Women's Protective Club in Upper Lake, which is the club that owns the building that houses the Upper Lake Library. And I'm also a member of Clear Lake Scholars. And I just have to say that if you get the record feed, you saw that we were on the lake, using that lake on January 1st, and it was gorgeous, and you should have all been out there with us. As for the library, which is really why I'm up here, I've been trying to figure out what I wanted to say since I knew this meeting was happening, and today it came to me. I need to find some entertainment, stimulating entertainment for somebody who has to be considerably more sedentary than they were. And I'm like, pulling my hair out, going, okay, what can we come up with? And so I go to the library. I'm like, well, I'll check out the website, see what I can find. Turns out there are 1 million great courses that the library possesses. I had no idea. All of a sudden, there's a course in philosophy he can watch. Of course, I don't know, I can't even go there. American literature, I don't know. There were 43 pages, 229 possibilities. And it occurred to me that I have been using the library since I was a wee one in a different way through all the stages of my life. But the library has been present in my life since I was a child, riding my bike to the library, getting my own books, using it for research in high school, maybe even a junior, I don't really remember that one. College, certainly. And then when I became a mother, using the library like you can't believe when you have small children. And then later on, after that, I was thinking that there are people who work at the Lakeport Library in particular that know what's going on in my life based on the books I check out. They know what's happening in my life because they see these books coming and going all the time. And I like that a lot, and I really like the access to the books. And right now, because of the 3-county system that the Lake County Library is in, there's no end to the information, the books, and the resources that we can get through that then come to us in Lake County. We don't have to leave the county to get these resources. They come to us. They come to Upper Lake. It's amazing. I love it, and I would hate to see it change.
No? Thank you. So you're saying the library was using cookies before the World Wide Web ever been existed? All right. I think we're doing fine on time. So your name and question or idea suggestion.
Hi, my name is Tony. I've only been here in the county for about 1 year and 3/4. I moved down into the long forgotten area down there in Spring Valley. I don't know. I didn't know which meeting to come to because they're all pretty far away from me. So
everyone say welcome, Tony.
So I buy property. I'm kind of retired and fix them up, and then actually I'm living in one of them. I'm working on it as I go, and I have a rental property out in that area too. And first of all, I think the real estate market is recovering. It's doing pretty well. I keep a pretty good eye on it, so I don't think the slump in the chart's going to exist for too much longer, but that may be just my personal opinion. The other issue I have that came up here, I'm surprised I'm the only one to get up here and talk about it because I don't actually have anything to do with it, but we seem to have a rampant problem down in Spring Valley with uncontrolled growth of marijuana. So, and I'm frustrated that nobody does anything about it, that it's people buy these bare pieces of property and they have no house or structure or sewer or electrical or anything, and they put up fences and they grow large amounts of marijuana out there. Well, as you probably read in the papers earlier, during the summer months we had a murder as a result of some of the growth of marijuana out in our area, and I find it frustrating that the crime and the criminal element that goes along with the uncontrolled growth of marijuana. So I guess my question is, I don't have a problem with people growing marijuana, but what are we going to do in regards to controlling that in our county? And I know you guys have some kind of program or something in place, not just along the sheriff, but I'd also like to know, have you projected the taxes and stuff from the marijuana into your new budget, and what does that look like to us, and what kind of projections do we have in that, and getting rid of the negative say good cash flow that we have going right now. And that's pretty much it.
This is news to me, there's marijuana in Lake County.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony.
No, I joke a little bit, but I understand the seriousness of it, and I do appreciate you recognizing that it's not just a law enforcement problem. After the passage of the recreational marijuana law that went into effect on January 1st, back to the medical use law, all the way back to Prop 215, 22 years ago now, it's been problematic. We're at a stage in California now where it's just a lot of this has to do with zoning and land use. We still continue in law enforcement to respond to grows that involve environmental damage, trespass grows, those types of things. But the zoning issues, a lot of what you're talking about are zoning issues where somebody doesn't have a house on a piece of property and they're growing it. After these laws, it's become a zoning issue, and it's like I compare it to if somebody had a horse in a neighborhood that's zoned residential, the cops don't come in there and arrest the guy for having a horse. It becomes a zoning issue. What I will tell you is that in response to a lot of this, I know the association I belong to is the State Sheriff's Association. We, all across the state, have dealt with these issues with marijuana. Because it's a zoning issue, there's due process afforded to people. So we have to give notice and give people the opportunity to cure it. And a lot of times that notice is so long that the growing season comes and goes, and by the time we're able to take any official action through governmental channels, the damage has already been done. The crimes have already occurred that you've discussed. And really, it's closing the gate after the horse got out. As far as what other county departments are doing, in a sense, I'm glad that the recreational use went through because it opens up so many other avenues for other departments like the public health department, the community development department, the ag department to all get involved in this in the regulation of marijuana because it's becoming a quasi-legal industry. It's become a legal industry. And so those regulations are regulations that my department doesn't enforce a lot of them. So we're getting more tools out there. And again, as far as funding them, I think the county has been exploring for a couple of years now different ways as to best fund those issues. My feeling is, and always has been, is that people that are involved in the industry that are making money on this should pay for addressing the issues that come along with it. By way of taxes, fees, whatever it is. It's an industry, there's money to be made. I also believe there's money to be made that can go towards other governmental services too, because there is an impact. She's keeping us in line.
First, I'm teasing him a little because actually what we're seeing in other counties that have policy in place around cannabis, actually their revenue projections are coming in lower than they anticipated. So I'm not sure cannabis is a panacea, although I think there is money to be made that will support the cost of implementing, administering, enforcing, etc. We're not going to make a profit on cannabis, but hopefully we'll pay for what it takes to deal with it. Our Board of Supervisors is absolutely committed to implementing responsible cannabis policy, and was there a laugh? For that reason, they recently approved a work plan to make that very thing happen, and in fact, next Thursday is the first workshop that is part of their work plan. And during that time, this first workshop, they'll be looking at the experiences in other counties, the confusing aspects of state law, and then in February, they'll move right on to a consideration of a cultivation ordinance, a commercial cultivation ordinance. It's a tongue twister. All of this is intended to get responsible policy in place as soon as possible. And during those times, we'll be presenting our fiscal projections, etc. Meanwhile, they have also directed their department heads to get busy, make cannabis implementation a priority. And so the department heads that have a role in cannabis will also be meeting concurrently while the board carries out its work plan. So I think you'll see a lot happening in the area of cannabis in the next 6 months.
Which department is that going to fall under?
There are a lot of departments that have mandated responsibility.
Somebody's got to be in charge.
Every department has a different aspect of it. The ag department is responsible for pesticide regulation and those types of things. State agencies such as Fish and Wildlife, State agencies such as Fish and Wildlife are responsible for any water diversion issues, cultivation that's too close to waterways, stream diversion, those types of things. So it's not, it doesn't follow just, and this is statewide, this isn't something that...
No, I understand, Brian, but our concern as citizens is where is the revenue going to come from, and is it going to be any benefit to us? And Carol just said that it's not going to be much.
This is why we're starting the work plan over the next 6
Give me your
months.
weight
So we have
because it's
better
already a law.
answers to your questions, yes.
Your name and question or idea and or both.
Probably a combination of all. Hi, my name is Carol Cole-Lewis, and I am a resident of Upper Lake. First of all, I wanted to echo Nell's comments in terms of the library in Upper Lake. I know we're losing a librarian, and I'm really grateful to see that you're going to replace that person. Thank you. Because I think that Upper Lake Library serves a very important purpose. And I also think that even having the internet, that's the only internet connection we really have, public internet connection that we have in Upper Lake. So that's really vital. The other thing too is that there's some items that might appear frivolous that we deal with, like maybe museums or parks. That makes me sad to think that we might think of those as frivolous, but in a cultured society, in a society especially that values tourism, that values a quality of life, I think these things are really important to spend money on. I know when the East Bay spent money on that beautiful park system that they have. How many people have ever been down to Oakland and been in some of those parks that they have there? You can actually walk them. Oh my gosh. And I thank you for the work that's being done on the trail system. That's really, as the water trails as well as the land trails. So I hope we continue to invest in that because it'll be very important for tourism. So now my idea, and also a question. Renewables are now starting to come and be very popular, especially solar is decreased in price to the point where it's actually cheaper to have solar than it is to use fossil fuels. So what is the county doing in terms of using more renewables to lower its costs, its energy costs? And also, here's the idea. What about the possibility of installing a solar community garden or farm that we can possibly sell energy to the rest of us who can't afford or can't do solar on our homes? That might be something that the county might want to get involved in. So those are just my comments and ideas.
Thank you, Carol. You're an excellent emoter. I want to just keep my math square. That's kind of like a math joke, more geometry joke. Is there anyone in the audience who is not going to come up to the microphone but would like to speak? Okay, two, three? Okay. All right, so try and keep it at 2 minutes, people, all right? Your name and question or idea suggestion.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Jensen. I'm co-publisher of Lake County News. I have an observation and a couple of questions. I think the observation is that earlier in the show, I noticed there was a chart that showed revenue versus expenses, and that in the period 2010-2011, revenues exceeded expenses, and you made the comment that there was a tax saving at that time. So I wanted to ask, when was the last tax sale?
The last tax sale was last year, and that was the first one in quite a few years. Our treasurer tax collector is an elected official who serves the voters, and that was the first one she had done in a while. This week, on Tuesday, she reported to the Board of Supervisors about her plans to do the next one. There will be another one coming up in this June. It's something that needs to happen on an ongoing basis. I don't have an answer for you why there was a lapse, but it's definitely something that needs to be ramped up, and the board engaged in a dialogue with her about that fact.
Outstanding. That's a really strong effort. The second question I had was, does anybody in the room know how many Airbnbs there are in the county? Anybody?
Matthew probably does. Matthew is working on the transient occupancy tax issue.
There are 365 in all of Lake County. Some are in unincorporated areas, some are in incorporated cities.
That's fascinating. I heard numbers much higher than this. That's good to know.
Right. Yeah, and that's in part because there are so many different web-based services that you have duplication in listings. You actually need a software solution in order to sort through all of those.
So, very briefly, what do you anticipate in terms of revenue from that sector?
It's difficult to project as of right now, in part because with the short-term rental market, of many of the providers, many of the online hosting platforms do not volunteer the information in terms of how many usages there are for each property. So there are some expenses related with getting that information. And so it's difficult to project as of this time because we don't know how many short-term rentals will ultimately be compliant with regulations.
But we're ending the practice of not going after that one.
Correct.
Let me say it a little differently. We're ramping up the practice of going after them. How about that?
Yeah, I'll say, well, we haven't gone after it yet, right? So that's fantastic, and if the point of this is to propose a sales tax, I'm all for it. I think it's a necessary thing. And we may not enjoy paying taxes, but we all need our parks, our museums, our libraries, our police, our roads. And fantastic news about the road stuff. That is wonderful news to hear. I hope it isn't repealed. Lastly, we spent so much effort on cannabis legislation. I really hope that we can put the screws on and gain some additional revenue on top of mitigation expenses. It seems like we invested. Thank you for tonight.
Thank you, John. Those were great, very, very thoughtful, great questions. And thank you, Matthew. Hi, your name and if you have a question or an idea, suggestion.
Hi, my name is Ann. Can you hear me? And I live in Nice. And I have a couple things to say. I think that if we want to bring more businesses to the county, we need high-speed internet. Without it, nobody's coming.
Comcast. We need Comcast up here. Yeah, Comcast's awful.
So I've heard, yeah. I think if we want to bring a different kind of tourist year round, we really need to go for the dark sky destination, international dark sky destination. We may big areas because I was in New York and I mentioned this to a friend of mine there. She said, "Oh, where do you camp?" And I said, Mendocino National Forest. Anyway, I think it's a really good idea, and we've got dark skies, we should monetize it. Monetize dark skies, that's not straight. We should do it. Bring more people because they're going to spend their money here.
Not to mention incredible sunsets, sunrises, and all of that.
Yeah, we have all of that. I think maybe the softest targets of the departments tonight are parks and recreation and libraries. So for parks and recreation, when are you going to finish the dog park in Nice? I walked by there today and it says closed. And I really want to say you can't run a library without money. It's really difficult to beg for books. It's really difficult to do it, to think that you can run a library with so many volunteers, because the glory of being a volunteer is you can say, I'm not coming next week. And the difficulty for a library, which is a business, is somebody got to be there.
Christopher has a donation cup right there.
I want to suggest another way. So, if you are book buyers, many people are, if you buy books, and when you're done with them, donate them to the library. You know, that's how we can get bestsellers into the library faster. But I don't want to say that that will make up for our county budget. No. It's really important that the county supports libraries. And, well, I'm a librarian, so. But when I was running the Ukiah Library, my budget for just adult materials, excluding anything online, anything, was more than Christopher's budget from the county for the whole county for all their materials. So there it is, you know, we need to support our library.
So I'm going to give you that answer about the dog park.
I'm going to answer your question maybe in a unique way, in the sense that there is a dog park now, and I think that's something we should celebrate. It's not open, but a few years ago there was nothing. Say, along with a number of other things, a softball field, and you're talking about Hammond Park. So to answer your question, there's a sign up closed under construction. It's been seeded. We're waiting for the seed to grow in.
Great, thank you.
Thank you,
Grass.
Carol.
We don't want more seeds coming up.
Stephen, would you be able to keep time for me? Because doing my math, I want to make sure we also get the 3 people in the audience. So 2 minutes.
So what's he keeping? 2 minutes?
2 minutes. All right, thank you. Your name and question or idea suggestion.
I'm Paul Cole. I have a suggestion and some ideas. I live in Upper Lake, and I just want to repeat some facts. I'm going to state some facts. These are from the pages and from the documents on the website of the Centers for Disease Control.
Use your microphone, please.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And in the essence of time, can you keep it on this presentation tonight and specifically what your question would be or suggestion in relation to that? That'd be awesome. Thank
Yes,
you.
I am going to suggest that we need to tax the wine industry for the damage they are doing to the country and to the county. From the Centers for Disease Control, excessive alcohol use can result in harms such as motor vehicle injuries, violence, heart disease, cancer, alcohol poisoning, and poor birth outcomes. Excessive drinking is responsible for about 88,000 deaths and 2.5 million years of potential life lost in the United States each year. In California, each year, 10,572 deaths and 304,472 years of potential life are lost due to the harms resulting from excessive alcohol use. The harms related to excessive alcohol use cost the United States $249 billion or $202.05 per drink in 2010. In California, excessive alcohol use costs $35 billion or $2.30
30 seconds left on 2 minutes.
per drink in 2010. $2.44 per drink are the costs of alcohol. And $2 of every $5 of these costs were paid by the public. So that $2.44, 40% of that is paid by the public.
So we're up on the 2 minutes, and we've noted the suggestion that is taxing the wine industry. Thank you. Yes, we did.
I didn't even finish it. I will be at the first board meeting in the 3-minute citizens input, and I will finish my statement of the $163 million loss caused by our wine industry. Thank you.
Hi, your name and question or suggestion, please.
My name is Judy McCollum, and I have a small business in Lucerne. And my question to the board, and I love Lakeland, and appreciate all your departments and your good work, and it sounds like somehow we need to raise their taxes. My question is, how does Lake County recruit businesses to our county? I'm interested in non-polluting businesses, techie businesses. Do we have that capacity? Are we active in that?
That was a great question. Thank you.
Having staffed the board for coming up on 2 years now, I have to say that that's probably a question that perplexes the board, because what the board hears from the community about a lot when it considers new business enterprises trying to come here, they hear mostly what the community does not want. But work needs to be done on what the community does want in terms of business attraction, so we can open our doors and get it here. And so when I said earlier that we'd like to see this really as a beginning of community forums, this one is a generalized one, but most certainly the board members need to hear from the community about what we do want so that we're actively attracting it. And so, you know, I don't mean to kick your question down the road, but frankly, it's a big topic that deserves its own focus. And so thank you for bringing it up.
Great question. Thank you.
your name and question or suggestion idea.
I'm Joe McCauley, the other half of Judy. Of course, Scott Dion. In the Harmon Springs Bridge project, they discovered 10 frogs, and now the feds want to increase the bid by $181,512. Can you explain to me how it takes that much money to relocate 10 frogs?
They're elusive.
You're freaking frogging me. Come on, dude. The frogs, they don't have no social security number, no ID, they don't talk our language, they don't care what the change of address is. You put them in their bucket, put them upstream, downstream. I'm done.
Well, I'll tell you the answer, or I'll give you my answer, and that is the frogs were listed by the state of California as a candidate species for endangered species. And while they're being considered for this listing, they are afforded the same protections as an endangered species. So there are a number of things that are required when you have an endangered species. You have to do studies, you have to do reports, you have to do plans for how you're going to deal with them. And all of those require professionals, consultants being brought in. They all pay prevailing wage. They all have lots and lots of overhead and requirements to do. And frankly, that's where our country is going. That's where our state is going with environmental protections.
Well, I sure appreciate $181,512 bottle figure. And what are we going to do when the feds What are we going to do when the feds put the hitch on the endangered species list?
And well, they should.
Are you kidding me?
Well, they should.
I love frogs, by the way, and I found one in my house last night, and I relocated him to the frogs.
Holy
Not on the bridge. Now there's 11, Scott. Sorry about that. Your name, please, and if you have a question or an idea, suggestion. And you're keeping track for me because there's 3 people out there. All right, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Wanda Quidquid. I'm a travel member here at Robinson Rancheria, so welcome to our facility here. And I just have a couple of comments to the county, kind of a thank you. For the first time in Lake County's history, we have a committee that is dedicated, gives tribal members input on the museums. And that is really a progressive thing at this stage of our history here, to be part of the museums and have a say on what is said about us and what is put into those museums and how they are supposed to be arranged and all these sort of things is really exciting for us. So that committee is pretty alive and well, and it meets regularly every month. So that is a first for Lake County. What the county has done, it has allowed a task force on Native American education, and that is not in its final formation yet, but it gives tribal members, tribes a say on the education, because the state of California is coming up with curriculum that will be in every school in the state of California in about 3 years. So this task force, and I chair the Native American Action Committee for our Upper Lake School District, and we can collaborate on this so that we have a say on what our children will be learning in this curriculum here in Lake County. And that is the first also. So there is history being made after all these years. And I also want to say that I'm president of the Women's Club, the Park Study Club in Clear Lake. And so Clear Lake, and the work that we do is dedicated to Clear Lake. And we give scholarships to the 3 major schools there. And I also serve with Anel on the Women's Protective Club for the Upper Lake Library. And we do give scholarships there for the high school as well. So when you see these things, activities going on, please support them. They're for youth here in Lake County, for all native and non-native. And that's what it's all about. So I'm here, and I appreciate what the county has done for the Native communities so far. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those wonderful updates. You're going to wrap up our standing mic.
I will.
All right.
That was unintentional. I'll keep it short and sweet, 30 seconds. My name is Giovanni Anus. I am the new superintendent of Upper Lake Unified School District. I'm using that newness only for the first 6 months. I'm almost up to that. I know kids. That's what I know. 24 years. I know kids. I know education. I know future. That's what we plan. That's what we work for. So I want to put a shout out. Libraries, parks and recs, museums. These are very essential for the future. It's a long-term vision. So please, please, please think in that direction. Well, we know for a fact, and law enforcement can testify to that, that kids make wrong choices after they leave the school. That time and after school. So we try to engage them as much as possible, but we still are losing some kids who are not engaged with us in after school programs. And we need that community partnership. So those parks and recs programs that we can develop and work with are essential. Those partnerships with libraries are essential. And that's how we can actually help our community. So please, please, please keep that in the forefront of your thinking. And that's my 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, there was someone back here. I'm going to work my way up.
There was 3 people.
I'm going to go here, here, and here. All right. Your name and question. What's those beard back here? Everybody. Yeah. Question or idea suggestion.
My name is Claudine, and I too am an advocate of our youth. We have to provide them with every opportunity to learn and grow and become confident adults. My other passion happens to be seniors, and I think we've got 2 senior centers in District 3, and our little senior center in Upper Lake is struggling. We have limited space, we have a bountiful bit of ideas, we have programs, we have a French program, we have a yoga, we have an exercise, help me out, art, we have art, and wonderful opportunities for the seniors. And you know what, we don't even say you have to be a senior to enter and become involved, but my concern would be if there would be funding available to senior centers to continue to reach out. We would love to serve meals. We're now sharing our county building with the genealogy, and our space is just like that. And we want to grow, we want to develop, we want to just reach out into the communities and bring the folks in. They have so much to share. And those folks can be mentors to the young people in schools. So, we have to all work together to make this world an even better place and Lake County a finer place.
The program we have at the senior center is open to the public and to the children. And one of the things we do is really important is putting the children with the elderly. And everybody know how much that can do.
And along with that line, we have a computer available with Wi-Fi. So.
And your comments are really right on. What you're talking about is the need for more senior services, and it's only going to increase because the baby boomer population, we're all advancing into needing those services. For many years, the board has given to senior programs in 2 ways. First of all, they give very modest annual allocations to each of the senior centers. And then the other way is they are part of a joint powers agreement with Mendocino County for the Area Agency on Aging. And each county provides matching funds to the Area Agency on Aging. The bulk of funds that the Area Agency on Aging gets comes from the state, and it operates those meal programs. But there's most certainly a growing demand for services that are needed by local seniors, and I know Supervisor Steele recognizes that keenly.
Claudine and Joelle, thank you. Jean. Your name and question or idea suggestion.
Gene Polino, I'm going to practice what I preach. I hope to preach tomorrow night at the townhouse meeting, keep my remark under 3 minutes to say what I have to say. First of all, I think that if we can raise taxes, it's a hard time with a sudden death clause for a couple of years. It'll help. I think most of the citizens will go along with it. Second, support your libraries. They're the bulwark of democracy. And finally, I think that being a World War II vet, I have some knowledge of the benefits that are given to vets, and I think if we're going to try cutting veterans' benefits. I'm in for it.
Thank you, Gene. And thank you for your service. Your name and if you have a question or an idea, suggestion.
My name is Lynn from Nice. I want to say quickly with the Sheriff's Department, I'd like to have your deputies get more training in Alzheimer's disease. Because there's a lot of Alzheimer's disease seniors that live in Lake County. And I've had some problems with your deputies, with my father personally. And they called off the paramedics at Northshore. I couldn't get him to Sutter Hospital emergency room because your deputy called off the Northshore Fire, the ambulance. And I'm going to talk to Mr. Steele about this. I was very upset. I was frantic at my house in Nice because of that. And he had high blood pressure. He could have had a stroke.
I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Yeah. So just quickly, California is the 8th richest economy in the world, I've heard. This is a rich state, okay? And there's no cuts. There should be no cuts. I mean, we should be able to do this. And there's tourism, there's agriculture, there's the tech industry, pot, there's a lot of revenue.
Thank you.
Agriculture, tourism, tech industry, pot, whatever, it's a rich state. And we shouldn't be hearing we've got to go through cuts in the state. It creates jobs in this county. Every time they make cuts, there's no jobs. Donald Trump has said, let's create jobs, make America great. And I'm not hearing that tonight. Now I'm Democrat, I didn't vote for Republican, but I mean, I do agree with them, let's make it great. Okay, so Linda, there.
That was kind of a hard stall.
Do we need to write Garamendi and, Congressman Mike Thompson, more letters, Garamendi, Kelmy Harris? I mean, we're voting for all these people on our behalf, and I think a poor county should get more money than a richer county. Like I'm from Marin County. Maybe Lake County should get more of the funding at the top than Marin County, for example. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Well, I'm a Democrat too, but I still like that slogan, make Lake County great again.
That's right, thank you. Very
All right, so that completes the Your Voice portion of the meeting. We really, really, really appreciate all that. It was fabulous. And Supervisor Steele and I are going to offer up some thank yous and call it a night.
Yeah, you've touched on a lot of things we are working on, and I can't tell you, I was disconnected, there we go. I can't tell you that anything's going to work. It always takes longer than you think. I mean, it took 3 years to get to the point where we could get the $2 million into a program where we're trying to turn the lake around, the management of the lake around, so we can start seeing some reaction in the lake. And there's some scientific reasons for that. We're also, a couple of years ago, I started working on the dark skies. It's more technical than you think, but we're going to get there. We think we've got one of the best counties for that kind of thing. And but unless the technical part works out, it isn't going to work for us. So that all has to happen. With regard to the pot that we're looking at, all of the cannabis that's in the state, we're doing workshops to find the right way forward. I've been working with the California State Association of Counties. I'm one of their board of directors, and also the Rural County Representatives of California, and I'm on that board. That's 35 rural counties that actually have the same problem as this one and thinks the same way. What happens on the other side, where all 58 counties get together, the thinking is driven by the urban suburban counties, because guess where the population is? And so the vote, the money, and everything goes where the biggest population vote goes. And so that's what drives this. And we're getting more of the pot than we used to because the rural counties are better organized. They're getting better and better organized. And in fact, I'm going to a meeting of the RCRC here next week. and we're going to be talking about that repeal of SB 1. That's the road tax dollars. How are we going to combat that and let everybody know that rural counties need a bigger cut of the pie, and we need to keep that tax in place so that we have some roads going forward in the future. All of those things are in the works. There's many, many more. You have no idea. Here's where you have the conversation on a one-on-one. Go to your town halls. I've got 3 of them here working. I'm going to, every month we do it until I drop. We're going to keep talking to people that come to those, but I can't talk to you if you don't come. Tomorrow night, Gene, our illustrious leader for the Worth, which is the Western Region Town Hall, is right here in, right near here in Upper Lake, and it's right next to the Habibital office, the Upper Lake Tribe, right next door on Main Street. So be sure and come at 5 o'clock on Friday. Right, so that's, there's places for you to plug in and make a difference. And oh, by the way, you're talking about the economy for bringing revenues in. We work on all of those locally. We have ideas, we talk about it, small money makes big differences, and wherever we can make that money go in the right place, it makes a big difference. That's the place to do it. So everybody is working in that direction. And I'll tell you what, I just love this turnout. I love all of you folks for being here. This has been great, and you didn't leave like I thought you would, but make sure that you fill out that survey, make sure that you give us input, make sure you come to those meetings. Very, very important. And we're working for you. So that's what we're going to do going forward. So thank you.
We want those surveys, or we want those emails, or both. Please take note of that email address if you'd rather do it that way. So now you've heard it directly from us. Lake County is facing serious budget challenges. We owe you a debt of gratitude tonight for your feedback. We're going to take the information we've heard from you, and we're going to use it to develop solutions to create a more sustainable financial future for Lake County. I hope you found tonight's forum to be both educational and an illustration of the transparency that we want to put forward in managing county government. As your CAO, I want the best county government we can put forth, offering the highest quality services to Lake County residents. I'm absolutely committed to our bright future. It has been my home here for over 25 years. Creating a long-term financial and economic vision is vital to Lake County's future. You know it, we know it. Let's get busy and do it. Your input tonight is an important step in the process. Thanks to everybody that showed up here at the front, department head, staff. Appreciate your time. Drive safe, everybody. Good night.